Hi guys, and welcome back to another day of factoring. So just as a quick reminder that when you're factoring, you should look for a GCF, a difference of squares, or Xbox. The other types of factoring will not be used very often, so these are the three main ones to look for. That being said, we're going to start today with problems that don't need factoring, so monomials. And today we're going to be learning about multiplying two fractions together. Okay, so in this problem, I have two fractions that are being multiplied. I don't need to do any factoring because there's no adding or subtracting anywhere in the entire problem. Now I can't get straight to simplifying because we do need to check for restrictions first. So restrictions need to be done before you start canceling anything out. As a refresher from yesterday, when you're finding your restrictions, you're focusing on the denominators. If there's no adding or subtracting, you're just going to write a list of every variable in the denominator and say that none of them can equal 0. So in this problem, I am going to say that D cannot equal 0 and C cannot equal 0. I got D from the first fraction and C from the second fraction. That's it for the restrictions on this question. Now I can simplify. When you're simplifying, you are allowed to cross cancel, or you can cancel from the top of one fraction to the bottom of the same fraction. The main idea is it has to be one for one on top, one on the bottom. But they can be in different fractions or in the same fraction. That part doesn't matter. In this problem, I can simplify my 6 and my 3. 6 is divisible by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. I can simplify my C's. I had 4 C's on top and 2 C's on the bottom. So these 2 C's will cancel out 2 of these C's, leaving me with 2 on top. And I can cancel my D's. So I had 5 D's on top and 2 on the bottom. These 2 D's will cancel out 2 of the top D's, leaving me with 3 on top. When you're all done with the entire problem, your final answer should be a single fraction. So don't leave it as two separate fractions. Make sure to multiply it together into a single fraction. And it is multiplying. Whatever has not been canceled does need to be multiplied together. On top, I have a c squared and a d to the third. And on the bottom, I have a 2 times 2, which is 4. So my final answer for this problem is c squared d to the third over 4. And the restrictions were d cannot equal 0 and c cannot equal 0. Let's move on and try some problems where we have to factor. So in this problem, again, I'm multiplying two fractions together. And I definitely have to factor in this problem because there's a ton of adding and subtracting. On these multiplication problems, you should check in 4 different places to see if you can factor. You should check the top of the first fraction, the bottom of the first fraction, the top of the second fraction, and the bottom of the second fraction. Moving in that order, on the top of the first fraction, I see a GCF. It's 3x, so I will be factoring out a 3x. Make sure that your GCF does not randomly disappear, that it's still written as part of the problem. On the bottom of the first fraction, I can do Xbox. Two numbers that multiply to make 9 and add to make -6 are -3 and another -3. Now, in the past, I wanted you to write this as x minus 3 squared, but for the purposes of canceling, it's actually better for us to write it as 2 separate parentheses. That way, we can very clearly cancel out one of the parentheses and the second one will still be there. On the top of the second fraction, I'm going to do Xbox again. So two numbers that multiply to make -6 and add to make -1 are -3 and +2. And then finally, on the bottom of the second fraction, I see a difference of squares. For a difference of squares, we do one with a plus and one with a minus. So it's x plus 2 and x minus 2. Once you've completely finished all of your factoring, then you can state your restrictions. Now remember, the restrictions only come from the denominator. And you want to check both of your fractions. In the denominator, I see a total of 4 parentheses, so potentially I have 4 restrictions. Now, 2 of the parentheses are the same, and I'm not going to write the same number twice. So in reality, I'm only going to have 3 restrictions. From the x minus 3 parentheses, I will get a restriction of x cannot equal +3. From the x plus 2 parentheses, I will get a restriction of x cannot equal -2. And then from the x minus 2 parentheses, I will get a restriction of x cannot equal +2. So 3 restrictions total, x cannot equal 3, -2, or +2. Once you've stated your restrictions, now you can start canceling. Remember, it's 1 for 1, 1 on top with 1 on the bottom. They can be on the same fraction or different fractions. Also remember that parentheses can only cancel with other parentheses that are 100% the same. So I can cancel out the x minus 2 with the x minus 2. I can cancel out the x minus 3 with one of the x minus 3's, but the other one will still be there. So make sure you're just canceling out one of them. And then I can cancel out the x plus 2 and the other x plus 2. They're on the same fraction. That's okay. That's like what we were doing yesterday. As long as one's on top, one's on the bottom, we're good to go. And I'm left with my final answer, which is 3x over x minus 3. Now, if you want to leave the x minus 3 in a parentheses so that you're not tempted to cancel out, that's a really good idea. So go ahead and throw some parentheses around that x minus 3 so that you don't accidentally cancel out the 3's and the x's, as they're not allowed to. Let's finish up today with this try on your own. Go ahead and pause the video, and then we'll check and see how you did. If you're struggling, a suggestion to you would be to factor out a negative sign from the top of the first fraction. We don't usually factor when the x squared is negative, and that's written backwards, right? Standard form usually goes x squared, x, and a number, and this one is written in the other way. So if you want to make it a little bit more normal looking, factor out a negative, and what that does is it changes the signs of all the numbers. So it will make your x squared a positive x squared, it will make your x a positive x, and it will make your 6 a negative 6. Hopefully that helps a little bit. All right, here is my final answer. So my final simplified fraction still has a negative sign in it that we factored out to switch the symbols. And then I ended up with 2 parentheses on top. Notice that I left them separate. So x minus 2 and x plus 5, I did not multiply them back together. I left them in their factored form to show me that I did factor, and I tried to cancel, and I canceled as much as I could, and I can't cancel anything else. If it's not in its factored form, it kind of looks like you didn't factor. And it also, looks like you didn't really check to see if you could cancel. So it has to stay in its factored form. Do not multiply it back out. And then on the bottom, I had an x plus 1. I end up with 3 restrictions. X cannot equal 5, or -3, or -1. This concludes today's video.